at WUTKradio.com on the Support WUTK tab. You'll be glad you did.
It's Monday, time for Rock Solid Sports.
The Tennessee Volunteers on a Neyland Stadium football Saturday afternoon come running through the tee.
Voted Blank News Knoxville's fine.
It's football time in Tennessee.
Sponsored by Cool Beans. Walk off the strip on Lake Avenue.
To the checkerboards. Touchdown, Tennessee.
Rock Solid Sports, the only show with a home field advantage for UT Athletics. Here's tonight's host.
Hello, everybody, and welcome in to Rock Solid Sports right here on 90.3 Rock for the Monday edition of RSS. I'll tell you guys that Rock Solid Sports Monday night show is Sports Pub. Lake Avenue, a block off the strip. Cool Beans has 25 rotating beer taps and bottles, HD TVs, darts, pool, and arcade games. Open every day at 11 a.m. with burgers, wings, and sandwiches for dine-in or takeout with vol card accepted. Go on Instagram at Knox Cool Beans or at coolbeansbar.com. Speaking of Cool Beans, we got our guy Riley Haltom over there. Riley, how's it going, my friend?
Going well, Jack. Cool Beans, they got a wide variety of whatever you want. I'm sure they got it as far as food and drinks go. NFL football, the pregame for the Monday night football tonight. Seahawks Broncos on. They got a Maine and Cats on as well. So it's a good time down here.
Absolutely, my man. And we're excited to talk some sports tonight. I'm joined by my guy Joseph Bonanno next to me across the glass. We got Bryson Wright, and a good friend of the show, writes for Rocky Top Insider, Mr. Tennessee media expert, Ryan Shumpert. How's it going, friend? All right, and all right, so I think we're having some technical difficulties over there in the fishbowl. Joseph's going to go solve that real fast. But hey, people, we're going to get into some Tennessee football to kick off tonight's show because they just had a big old win on the road this past Saturday, knocking off number 17 Pittsburgh, then number 17 Pittsburgh. And it was a big win for the Volunteers and Josh Heupel, of course, 34-27. The overtime thriller, Tennessee winning. And this is just such a big win for the Vols because, okay, we're good? All right, let's go over to the fishbowl. Ryan Shumpert, ladies and gentlemen, how's it going?
We got it now.
There we go. Hey, we
doing well.
There
it
is.
Glad.
There it is.
Glad we got the technical difficulties out of the way. But yeah, doing well. Glad. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Yes.
Good to get back on the show.
Yeah, we love having you, Bryson. How's it going, man?
Doing pretty good. How you doing, Jack?
Perfect. Glad we got everything rolling now, and of course Joseph's next to me. But let's get into it. Ryan, you're the only one of us who is at Pitt. So before we get into the nuts and bolts of what happened, just tell me how the atmosphere was, the environment for Johnny Majors Classic Part 2.
Yeah, I think 59,000 attendance. I think 67,000 back for stadium seats. Probably more closer to the low 50s, but lower decks, both sides, really all around was very full, and then the upper decks pretty decent, but a lot of empty seats towards the top, at least behind the Tennessee bench, and then we couldn't really see above us. The press box was kind of at midfield behind the Pittsburgh sideline, and then in the end zone, plenty of empty seats in the upper deck, but a lot of Tennessee fans there, and certainly a good atmosphere for a lot of the game. Is really, you look at Pitt's schedule, probably the second biggest home game they have on that schedule after the opener against West Virginia.
Absolutely. It was a really big game for both programs, and of course Tennessee coming out on top. And you mentioned Tennessee fans making the trip and showing out well in Pitt. Well, the night before, Ryan, at the Pittsburgh Pirates and St. Louis Cardinals MLB game, there was quite the amount of Tennessee fans there too.
Yeah, there was. It was funny. We went over there and sat kind of in the outfield seats for a couple innings before going behind the plate. But when you're sitting in the outfield seats, kind of looking back at the game, it just looked like fall in the crowd because you had a lot, probably most red St. Louis, and then a lot of orange for Tennessee, and then the least amount of there was some yellow for the Pirates. But had those fall colors, and it was certainly plenty of Vols fans and a lot of Cardinals fans there as well.
Absolutely. And the chants raining throughout the stadium there. And Joseph, you ready to talk some Tennessee?
Yeah, let's get into it. This was a very ugly game between Tennessee and Pittsburgh. Ryan, you kind of witnessed it in person, I guess. But I guess just your initial takeaways from the Tennessee team. What do you think they did best at? What do you think they really need to work on? Because I know we all have ours, but you saw them with your own eyes in person, and I just want to see what you saw from there in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I've said it a few times now, and maybe tweeted it out too. But and certainly Keaton Slovis' injury had a little bit to do with it. But there aren't many teams that could go on the road and win against a top 25 team playing as badly as Tennessee did on Saturday. And I think certainly when you look at what was good, Tennessee's defensive line, that was a big question to me coming out of the first game, and not necessarily just the pass rush. I know that was a big conversation with no sacks, but the defensive line, they didn't create a lot of negative plays against Ball State in the opener. I think they had 9 tackles for a loss and really controlled the line of scrimmage. One big 75-yard run, I think, for Pitt. In the rest of the game, I think they ran for just about 65 yards. And then they threw it a lot. Pitt threw it a lot early, but in the second half, once Slovis was down and it was Nick Patty that came in, they clearly wanted to run the ball. Tennessee really did a good job of taking that away. And certainly, sometimes with 4, but more times than not, Tim Banks drawing up some blitzes. I think that Tennessee did a great job of getting to the passer and forcing some turnovers that way, and certainly some negative plays that they needed.
Yeah, absolutely. The Tennessee pass rush came alive. We didn't really see them get home against Ball State, obviously. No sack on the stat sheet, but they definitely made their presence known against Pittsburgh. And Ryan, among these guys on the Tennessee pass rush, of course, Byron Young and Tyler Barron leading the pack. Who are you most impressed with when you watched on Saturday?
Yeah, I think both those guys were probably the 2 best. I would go Tyler Barron just because I think he probably made the biggest play, or one of the biggest plays of the game, stripping Slovis and obviously knocking him out there at the end of the first half. Tennessee steals 3 points. They go up by 7 at halftime with Pitt getting the ball back, and obviously all those points proved very important. I think you look at the game and so many opportunities that Tennessee took advantage of. That opportunity there to get points, Chase McGrath in the 51-yard field goal, whereas Pitt, they missed 2 field goals, pretty short field goals too in the game. It felt really big that Tennessee was able to capitalize. They had a lot of special teams issues, but at least in the field goal kicking game, they had a huge advantage over Pitt. And that was kind of going off topic now, but that was one of the reasons I thought Pitt may go for 2 when they took the lead with 2 minutes left. It just seemed like Pitt's defense was playing really good too, but everything was going really hard for that Pitt offense, and it certainly seemed like Tennessee had the field goal kicking game, which is obviously pretty huge in the college overtime.
Yeah, for sure. And just another thing that I wanted to talk about is obviously the offense had a really slow start. What do you think it was that got them off to that slow start, and how did they really turn that around?
Yeah, I mean, it was, talk about turning around. It was certainly kind of up and down the whole game. And I think so much about what Tennessee does in their tempo is predicated on getting that first down and getting things moving. And they really weren't able to do that. They weren't able to get in their quick tempo. I think they probably knew going in they were going to struggle to run the ball with their running backs up against Pitt's front. That's why they ran Hendon Hooker so much. But Tennessee, they were behind the sticks a lot, didn't have those early in the game. They missed those quick hitters. I guess we talked with Hendon missing a couple of those throws that he usually does early in the game. That's why I think Tennessee probably wasn't able to get it going early, and then obviously hit a couple explosive plays that were real big, but they just really seemed to struggle driving the ball and sustaining drives. And I think the lack of run game was really, really important in that, as Tennessee kind of played behind the sticks most of the afternoon.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's move on with talking about the Tennessee offense. Of course, once they got going, they did enough. I mean, in the second quarter, you mentioned the Barron play. That set up to Tennessee to take a 24-17 lead entering half. Third quarter, nothing really happened, and then Tennessee held on in overtime with the big Cedric Tillman touchdown. But I want to talk about a different Tennessee receiver. We know Cedric Tillman's a beast. I want to talk about Brew McCoy. The impact he's been able to make in such a short amount of time has been pretty remarkable, and just he passes the eye test, Ryan. I mean, this guy has it.
Yeah, he does. I think he needs to start getting more targets. I'm not against whatever the number was, 18 or 19 for Cedric Tillman. I certainly think, get your best guy the ball, throw it his way as much as possible. But Brew McCoy, I think, just had 4 targets. And Tennessee was really heavy throwing the ball to that right side of the field in that game. And I thought McCoy should have gotten more opportunities. They did have one little rub play they drew up for him when I think it was Princeton Fant blocked, hit too early. They got an offensive pass interference. But it just seems right now that Hooker, his trust just isn't completely, or his chemistry isn't completely to the point that it needs to be with Brew McCoy, which isn't a surprise. But I think when you look at physical talents and what Tennessee got in the transfer portal, I think Brew McCoy is as much as they could have hoped for. And it just seems to me like his role going to go up more and more. And really, of these Tennessee receivers, we haven't seen a ton. It's still early, but I think he may be the best one with his ball in his hands, breaking tackles. That 3rd and 10 conversion he had there on Tennessee's field goal drive in the second half was just a big time play. Caught it about 3 yards short of sticks and looked like Jawan Jennings on this, using his physicality to get to the marker. He was really impressive, and like I said, I think his role is only going to go up.
Yeah, definitely. I honestly think that might have been the biggest play of the game, looking back at it, because if they don't get that first down and kick that field goal, then you're talking about losing in regulation and not even going to overtime. So he might have had the biggest play of the game. I liked the Jawan Jennings thing. He had 50. He's wearing 15, so he had to show out for Jawan. So I think he's doing his part so far for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And again, it just seems like they got him a few touches in the quick game against Ball State. You really didn't see that as much against Pitt, but they need another guy. Well, I don't know if they need it because Senator Tillman's pretty good, but I just think having another guy that can get in that intermediate game on 3rd and longs is huge. And Jalen Hyatt, for I think a lot of his strengths, his physicality, his ability to make tough catches over the middle probably isn't his biggest strength. And I don't think Tennessee talked about playing a lot of receivers in the preseason camp, and I was always a little bit skeptical of that. And they probably will play more than they played against Pitt, but none of those guys have the physicality to make those plays in the intermediate passing game, which obviously Tennessee doesn't throw as much. It's a lot of quick stuff, a lot of deep stuff. But when they get in the 3rd downs, a lot like they did in that Pitt game, which I'm sure will happen a few more times this year, they need those physical guys and those opportunities.
So we obviously know the stars of this game: Hendon Hooker, Cedric Tillman, Brew McCoy had a solid game, but a unit that was pretty quiet for Tennessee was the rushing unit, and Jalen Wright and Jabari Small. They combined for just over 60 yards on 19 carries. And I wanted to ask you, do you think that reflects more on them, the Tennessee offensive line, or Pitt's game plan going into this game?
I'd say probably a combination of Tennessee's offensive line, and I don't know if it's Pitt's game plan necessarily, but that's just the strength of Pitt's team. Man. That's Pat Narduzzi defense. That's number one priority. You're going to stop the run, and you saw that in last year's game. And I think when you look at Tennessee's run game, I think it's going to be a lot like it was last year against a real good defensive lines. The Georgias, the Alabamas are going to struggle to run the ball. I just don't think they have the guys up there on the offensive line. And I think Jabari Small and Jalen Wright are good players, but they're not all SEC caliber, all American caliber guys either that can make a lot out of nothing. So, but again, when you go to the games like Florida, I think even when you look at how Kentucky was able to run on them without Chris Rodriguez, the South Carolina and Missouri's, it was kind of middling SEC teams. I think Tennessee's going to be able to run the ball a lot better than they did on Saturday. But again, it remains, I don't think it's going to be a huge strength. The one real positive I thought in the run game is I thought they ran the ball well when they ran it on 3rd and short, how much they struggled in those instances a year ago. Granted, Jalen Wright fumbled after he got the first down on one of them, and he really was having the best day of any of Tennessee's running backs, and I don't think he even got another carry after that. So that's something certainly to watch. And but again, on a day where the run game, especially with running backs, was pretty bad. A couple conversions on 3rd and short.
And I just real quick want to focus on the O-line, because I think out of all of the offensive units, the wide receivers, quarterbacks, running backs, I think they probably had the worst day on offense overall. It seemed it wasn't like when they played Ball State. Obviously, Pitt and Ball State, the defensive line, huge jump in talent difference between those two. But I just wanted to get your evaluation of the Tennessee offensive line against a really strong defensive opponent.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at Gerald Mincey, obviously that was the one new piece. I thought he held up pretty well in the pass game. A couple plays that, again, it's hard to know the exact assignments on all of them. A couple plays, at least one I can remember in the first half, he didn't pick up a blocker coming or a blitzer, coming out wide, and it was either a sack or a quick throwaway, I think, from Hooker. But I think in the pass game he was good. In the run game, not as much. And I thought it was a pretty middling performance from Tennessee's offensive line. It certainly wasn't great. I don't think it was horrible either. It was about what I expect. And to me, it just looked a lot like Tennessee's offensive line was last year, which is, again, kind of what I was expecting from this group. Maybe you hope that those guys take a jump bringing back 4 guys. But when you lose Cade Mays and just in general, I don't know, the ceiling of some of the guys in this Tennessee offensive line, it was kind of about what I expected.
Pretty sure Gerald Mincy played every snap at left tackle, right?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, that's so much for an LT battle, I guess. I mean, 2 weeks in, and shows where the confidence lies, definitely. And let's put a bow on Tennessee Pitt talk, because we gotta talk some big games coming up in Tennessee's schedule, specifically one in a couple of weeks. But you look at all the mistakes Tennessee made: the muffed punt from Trayvon, the blocked punt, the fumble from Jalen Wright, a couple drops from Cedric,
the overpass,
the overthrow from Hendon. I mean, there was quite a bit. Like you said, Ryan, not many teams that can play as badly as they did and get the win on the road against a top 20 opponent. But they won. When the plays needed to be made in overtime, it only took a few plays and they scored. Cedric Tillman boxed out the corner and made the play. So how scary is it for Tennessee to make all those mistakes but still win against a really quality opponent on the road?
Yeah, I think it's a great sign. I mean, you heard Heupel say it after the game. I think you heard a handful of players maybe a little less decisively say it, that, they probably don't win that game a year ago. And I think especially what the defense was able to do. And I think the big piece is you just don't know how much to factor in Slovis's injury. And certainly I thought early in that second half, Patty looked pretty uncomfortable. I go back to that first third down. The pocket wasn't collapsing on him, and he looked to take off and run. And I think didn't get many yards. They ended up getting a first down on a defensive holding. But then you look, I mean, he did settle in and make some nice plays. I mean, the fourth down touchdown to force overtime was a really nice throw with Jeremy Banks in his face, and then a good catch as well. Burrell had solid coverage, and then I think the other thing you got to look at, maybe that's really encouraging for Tennessee's defense, is those last three drives, Pitt's drives at the first half when Slovis was in, Tennessee got stops. After that rough start, they really turned it around and ran really outside of the 75-yard touchdown run and the 59-yard pass to Bartholomew, who
made the play.
Yeah, I mean, Trayvon Flowers.
Hell of a play.
Yeah, that hurdle was nice. That was insane. I don't think I've ever seen a man that big jump that high.
Yeah, it was impressive, and it was certainly probably, well, it wasn't the lowest moment. It was a low moment on a very roller coaster up and down day for Trayvon Flowers. But I say that to say, I think there were a lot of positives about what Tennessee did defensively in the first half, especially after the first couple of drives where obviously they looked really poor.
All right.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, Jack and I think we were going to the same place. But Jack kind of alluded to it, looking ahead at some of these tough matchups. Obviously, Akron this week, I wouldn't really call it a tough matchup. I mean, they're favored by 50, almost 50. I think it's 48.5. But next week is probably one of the most interesting matchups of the year, and that is when Florida comes to Neyland Stadium to take on a hopefully undefeated Tennessee team. Looking ahead at this matchup, where do you currently stand right now on what that outcome of that game could be, what Tennessee will look like against their first SEC opponent this year, and anything else you have about Tennessee, Florida?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a toss-up game. I think Tennessee's probably a little bit slightly more talented maybe in certainly games in Neyland Stadium, but we know how this rivalry's gone for Tennessee the last 20 years, and it hasn't gone well. And certainly Tennessee's found the way to lose a lot of close games. And, I think Florida's certainly a very capable team. I didn't get to watch much of that Kentucky-Florida game on Saturday night. Obviously, it looked like it was a disastrous performance for Anthony Richardson. And I don't think that result, maybe how badly Richardson played, but the result I think surprised me a ton just because, Florida was told all week after that Utah game how great they were. And if Anthony Richardson, he was Cam Newton. If he wasn't Cam Newton, he was Vince Young. And if he wasn't Vince Young, he was the other quarterback who wore number 15 for Florida about a decade and a half ago. So I think Florida certainly still has its flaws. I certainly still think there maybe some immaturities. I mean, it's early in maybe not a rebuild, but certainly Billy Napier trying to change the culture and certainly change the way they do things in Gainesville. So I think it's going to be a really good game. I think it's going to be an awesome environment. It's going to be an awesome challenge for Tennessee. And I think when you look at it, Tennessee's offense, I think, has a lot of advantages against that Florida defense. And I think they need to fully capitalize and play really crisp and a lot more polished than they did this weekend in Pitt.
Yeah, Ryan, I got to agree with you. And something that really sticks out to me is last year, one of the things Tennessee struggled with a lot was quarterbacks moving out of the pocket, picking up yards with their legs. And that's something that Anthony Richardson's very good at. So, how do you think the Tennessee defense some new faces back there. Secondary looks a lot better than a lot of people were expecting going into the season. How do you think they're going to end up matching up against Anthony Richardson?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's in the offseason. That was a matchup I was looking at the whole summer because Anthony Richardson is just such a dynamic runner, and you hit it on the head. I mean, Tennessee was terrible against running quarterbacks last year, and they didn't face any as explosive as Anthony Richardson. I think where you look at Kentucky spied Richardson a lot. Can Tennessee's linebackers play effectively? I mean, we saw Tennessee spy a lot against Matt Corral last year. Jeremy Banks and Tennessee was not very effective. So how does Tennessee's linebackers hold up? Aaron Beasley's gotten off to a great start to the year. Jeremy Banks, not as much. And then Jawan Mitchell, I think, is someone I expect to be back before that game, whether he plays this week or Florida's his first game of the season. So what does those guys give athletically? Are they able to make the plays in open space on Richardson? And then Tennessee's secondary, I think it's been a mixed bag. And do they play more guys? I mean, it was a 3-man rotation the first game. Christian Charles, I think, only got 2 snaps on defense against Pittsburgh. What does that look like? And Tennessee's played, I think, so conservatively in the back end the first 2 games. It's been to keep everything in front of them and try not to give up the big play against Richardson, who his accuracy really isn't his greatest strength. So they try to take away some of that quick, easy stuff and make him make tougher throws at risk of giving up some big plays.
Yeah, Ryan, I really agree with you on your previous point a couple questions ago when you talk about Florida being told they were so great and then they lay an egg against Kentucky. I don't think not anyone, but I don't think many people were expecting them to beat Utah the way they did. So Florida kind of came back down to earth. They're more of what we expected, and I think Tennessee probably has a decent chance to win as long as they can prevent Anthony Richardson's legs from hurting them so much. Now, we started this little interview with you here with an atmosphere question. I'm going to end it with one because you work for Rocky Top Insider. Article released earlier today on RockyTopInsider.com that could College Game Day come to Knoxville for this premier SEC matchup?
Yeah, I think it's kind of the leader. A week out from the decision and 2 weeks out from the game. You look at the other big games that day, Arkansas A&M, that's in Dallas at the neutral site, Cowboy Stadium. I don't think they'll want to go there. You have Ohio State, Wisconsin. Obviously, Wisconsin lost to Washington State, which dampens that game, and even more, I think the fact they were in Columbus to start the season makes that unlikely. Kansas State plays at Oklahoma, USC, maybe Oregon State. Those are a couple of games, but really, to me, I think it's going to come down to Tennessee, Florida, and then Clemson goes to Wake Forest that day too. And obviously, Sam Hartman being back, Wake Forest played really well against Vanderbilt. It looks likely. I think trying to remember who it is that Wake Forest has this week. Liberty. So it's a losable game, but one you would expect them to win. So both those teams are likely to be undefeated going into that. I think it'll probably either be a Wake Forest or a Tennessee.
All right, Ryan. Well, we appreciate you talking Tennessee with us. You gonna stay on with us for a little Titans talk, or is it hurt too much?
Yeah, I'll let you guys talk a little more than me, but I'll chime in with any thoughts I have that aren't too irrational.
Awesome. Love to hear it. Well, everybody, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back right here on Rock Solid Sports, rocking on the Monday night show with some Rock Solid Sports.
WUTK thanks Cool Beans, 1817 Lake Avenue, 1 block south of the Strip, for sponsoring and hosting the Monday night Rock Solid Sports broadcast at 7 p.m. Cool Beans is the pregame and postgame location for UT football and Knoxville's home for the NFL Sunday Ticket, Titans football on the big screen, and more. Rock Solid Sports kicks off Monday Night Football with the show's live broadcast from 7 to 8 Monday nights at Cool Beans. Cool Beans is 21 and over after 9 p.m. with a full and late night menu. CoolBeansBar.com or their Facebook page.
They're playing basketball.
Volunteer Radio thanks the UT Athletic Department and the men's basketball program for their support. Coach Barnes' 8th season on the hardwood includes home games against Kentucky, Vandy, and more at Thompson Bowling Arena. General public ticket info for UT basketball is at allvols.com. Student ticket info and login is at bigorangetick.utk.edu. That's TIX. Volunteer Radio says Go Vols basketball.
The Rock thanks the Hill Bar and Grill for their support. The Hill on Forest Avenue is open 7 days a week at 11 a.m. until late night for dining indoors or on the expanded patio. The Hill has a variety of appetizers and a full menu of wings, burgers, tacos, and more. The Hill is our Thursday Munchie Madness sponsor and home of Friday's Rock Solid Sports. On Instagram at The Hill Knox. Menu at thehillknox.com.
Support for WUTK comes from Fieldhouse Social, the modern sports bar next to campus at University Commons. Fieldhouse Social serves American craft fare such as burgers, wings, and more with high tops around the bar, a separate dining area, and a center lounge with leather chairs and couches in front of their 23-foot LED TV wall for Tennessee and pro sports. Fieldhouse Social is an outdoor patio with trivia twice a week and sponsors Wednesday's Rock Solid Sports. FieldhouseSocial.com.
Volunteer Radio thanks our on-campus media partner, UTDailyBeacon.com, for their support. The Daily Beacon has served the University of Tennessee Knoxville as the official student editorially independent newspaper since 1906, featuring up-to-date campus and city news, sports, and info on UT and Knoxville events. And the sign-up for the Beacon newsletter is on the website. The Wednesday Daily Beacon is available at over 50 locations on campus, fall and spring semesters, and stories are published daily at UTDailyBeacon.com. The Daily Beacon sponsors WUTK's UT News and Issues show Rocky Top Roundup, Thursday nights at 7 on Volunteer Radio.
90.3 The Rock proudly brings Knoxville the best in new and classic, independent, and underground music on the Indie Owl. Monday nights from 8 to 10, hosted by former award-winning alumni from the WUTK Music Department and sponsored by Magnolia Records, 1515 North Central Avenue in Knoxville, and the Tomato Head Restaurant on Market Square and in the Gallery Shopping Center. Spinning cutting-edge music from around the world that pushes musical boundaries like noise pop, math rock, slowcore, shoegaze, garage rock, chamber pop, chillwave, and more. The Indie Owl brings you hard-to-find music from the artists that make it to the listeners who love it. The Indie Owl also provides independent artist news and chances to win Tomato Head and Magnolia Records gift cards. Tune in to Knoxville's true independent radio. The Indie Owl, Monday nights at 8, only on 90.3 The Rock, always bringing Knoxville new music first.
.3 The Rock thanks the UT Athletic Department for their support. Season tickets for the 2022 UT Volunteers football season are on sale now. The next phase of Neyland Stadium renovations will be ready for the new season with home games against Florida, Alabama, Kentucky, and more. Info at allvols.com. A link is at WUTKradio.com. 90.3 The Rock wishes Coach Heupel and the football Vols good luck this season on the gridiron.
The Rock thanks the Knoxville Ice Bears Southern Professional Hockey League team for their support. Their 2022-2023 home ice season from October through April includes games with SPHL rivals Fayetteville, Huntsville, Roanoke, and more at the Civic Coliseum downtown. Single game and season tickets are at KnoxvilleIceBears.com or 865-525-PUCK. Rock Solid Sports features Ice Bears Wednesdays with news and updates. Volunteer Radio says, Go Ice Bears!
All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Rock Solid Sports, where we are sponsored by Cool Beans on this wonderful Monday show. And we got our guy, Riley Haltom, over at Cool Beans. Riley, how's it going, my friend?
Going well. We got the pregame warm-ups on the TV. Mood's getting excited for Monday Night Football. Russell Wilson, make his return against this time playing against the Seahawks. And yeah, wide variety of food, wide variety of drinks. So great time down here at Cool Beans.
Yeah, I have a feeling that Russell Wilson's going to get that revenge tonight and get a big, well, not even a big win. I mean, it's the Seahawks, but he's going to get a pretty sizable win over Seattle tonight on Monday Night Football. Tune into the minicast, by the way. It's great. And, all right, but, we got to talk about a different NFL team.
Jack has to plug his Omaha. Omaha. He's got to.
I mean, yeah, it's a little mandatory when I can. Love the VFL Peyton. But let's talk about another NFL team. As much as it might hurt you guys, it doesn't really hurt me. So I actually think it's kind of funny. But Titans lost 21-20 to the New York Giants in their season opener in Nashville. Not pretty, guys. Not pretty at all when Danny Dimes comes in your building and leaves with a W. But it's more because of Saquon Barkley and the Titans' choke job. But Joseph, let's hear the pain.
Yeah, I'll start off by saying any Titans fan who thinks this is on Ryan Tannehill needs to reconsider what they just watched. Because the play calling, there was some execution issues in that game, but the play calling and the decision-making from the coaching staff and Todd Downing, the offensive coordinator, was just beyond mind-boggling. I can think of 2 or 3 different instances where I'm just like, what in the world did I just watch? including calling the timeout with 18 seconds left instead of taking the delay of game because I know Bryson and I talked about it. You lose 5 yards on that play. You try to get over to the left hash regardless. Just take the 5 yards. You got 2 more shots at getting closer plus your timeout. It was just an overall poorly executed game from the coaching staff and from Tennessee's offense. I think the defense played phenomenal. I think they just got too tired because they were literally trying to carry Tennessee on their back. Just a poor overall showing from Tennessee. And it's exactly how you expected a Tennessee football team to start their season. It's just, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. I know we talked about some of the decision making from Todd Downing, and I think the biggest one was that 3rd and 1 where they ran the tight end around
with the rook.
When you have Derrick Henry on your team and it's 3rd and 1 and you're trying to run the clock out and run some time off the clock before the Giants could even get the ball or maybe go down and score on one of those 30, 40-yard runs. You always see Derrick Henry. That's what he's known for. You give him the ball at the end of the game, and he's worn the defense down, and he breaks a big one, and you go up by 2 touchdowns, and the game's over. But instead, you decide to run a tight end screen with a rookie, which I do not want to put anything. It's not on Chig. I think he's going to be a really good player for the Titans. I think it's on the coaching because the play calling just didn't make any sense. And like you said with Ryan Tannehill, I don't think that it was necessarily Ryan Tannehill's fault. Obviously, he could have made maybe a couple more throws, but I mean, when you look at it, even that throw he made at the end of the game to Kyle Phillips to set up that field goal was really nice. So I don't really think it's really completely on the players. Obviously, the muffed punt and all that was a problem as well. They made some mistakes, and that's definitely not good going forward. But I think the stuff with the players, I think they can fix it. There's stuff that they can do better next week from a player standpoint. It's really going to come down to the coaching and especially on the offensive side.
So does Todd Downing got to go?
Yes. Oh, I was saying Todd Downing needed to go last year.
So you have to go now?
I mean, he should have gone over the offseason. They should have.
It's too late. I think it might be too late just because the season just started, and it's week 1. So I don't want to call for him to be fired during the middle of the season, but it was not. It was. I don't know if I've seen a worse called game like down the stretch.
Vrabel is not going to get rid of Downing in the middle of the season. They'll wait till after the season when they implode at another point. Even when they, for some reason, have the ability to make the playoffs, do something in the playoffs, and they're just going to blow it again. But it's
a lot of confidence in there, Joseph.
It's definitely, yeah. It's definitely something that needs to be addressed at least this offseason, because I don't think it'll happen during the season. But
definitely. But another thing is like the problem is on the first drive, I felt like they had a really good opening script drive, and it was awesome. But they kind of went away from the stuff that they did where it's like, give the ball to Derrick Henry. We're going to run some play action and try to find some people over the middle of the field, especially like Treylon Burks on like some crossing routes and stuff like that where he was open. And I was like, that was a great play. And Dontrell Hilliard had an amazing game too. But it was just like the further you got in the game, it felt like the play calling got worse.
Yeah, and I'm just a little puzzled by the usage of the weapons on offense. I mean, Robert Woods only getting 2 targets. You know, Treylon Burks was used, but he wasn't used a lot. Not like the wide receiver one maybe some people expected him to be. And, you know, Kyle Phillips leading the team in receiving, Dontrell Hilliard being worked so much, Jeff Swaim leading tight ends and snaps. I mean, what's going on here?
Hey, listen, Todd Downing and Mike Vrabel, they've had this issue together since last year. They don't go to their playmakers and they don't create plays for their playmakers. I mean, they did for A.J. Brown a little bit last year, but when he got hurt, obviously they had to find other spots, and Nick Westbrook-Akina and some other lowly wide receivers on their team. And they're doing the same this year. I mean, you saw in that first half when Tennessee really dominated, you saw Treylon Burks getting the ball. Robert Woods had a really nice catch, even though he only got 2 targets all game. Austin Hooper didn't get. He played 30 seconds.
He had the lone catch at the end.
One catch. One catch, and that was with 33 seconds left. And that was one of 2 targets he had all day. Like, why are you running plays for Jeff Swaim, Cody Hollister, who was your fourth best wide receiver with one catch for 22 yards, and it was his only target. But why is Cody Hollister your fourth best wide receiver in terms of yardage production when you have Kyle Phillips and Robert Woods and Traylon Burks and all these pieces that you added over the offseason? It's awful, and that's not something the players can do. I mean, they're told to go out on the field. They go out on the field. That's on the coaching staff, and it's ridiculous that it's still an issue. And like you saw this last year, and you're still making the same mistakes over and over and over again.
Right. Yeah, and it's definitely a little bit more frustrating because, like you said, the defense played really well, especially the D-line. Jeffrey Simmons and Bud Dupree and Rashad Weaver, they all played really well, I think. And even Danico Autry played pretty well, in my opinion.
Yeah, 5 sacks for that.
Yeah, that D-line went. It felt the same way as that playoff game did last year, where it was like the defense was doing everything they could. Obviously, the Giants ended up scoring at the end, but I feel like that was more of like a war of attrition kind of thing. They had been getting beat up by Saquon Barkley for 3 quarters because the offense couldn't stay on the field, and I think that's kind of why they ended up breaking down near the end. But I still think that it comes down to, on the offensive end, they just have to be better. They just have to be better because I think this defense is going to keep them in games regardless of what the offense does. But they're not going to be able to be a playoff team with the kind of stuff that I saw yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think the Tennessee defense is a pretty good unit. And Saquon Barkley, I think he may be back. He looked so good yesterday.
He's finally healthy.
Yes.
That was one thing.
And even last year when he was, quote, healthy, he looked slow. I think he's healthy now.
I think he's back to 100%. And I really like that because he is a player that I've always thought was really exciting and fun to watch. I wish he would have done it against a different team, but it was still good to see him back at 100%.
Yeah, maybe the Titans defense struggled in space a little bit, and obviously allowing the big play to Sterling Shepard wasn't optimal. But
it was, if you go and watch the replay, Christian Fulton, who's wide receiver 1, he just lost him. He just he had his back turned to the sideline. Shepard took the outside and just ran right by him. Fulton had no idea where he was going. I'm assuming Shepard was. I guess he tried to predict the route, and I guess he thought Shepard was going to cut in, but he didn't, and he stuck right behind him. And when he made that catch, there was 15 yards of separation between the two.
Yeah.
And you just can't let that happen, especially not against the Giants, because if you're letting that happen against a team like the Giants,
right,
what are you going to do next week against the Bills, or the following week against the Raiders, who have Devontae Adams, or the next week against
Indy,
the Colts? And so it's just, you got to clean up those mistakes, because you're not going to luck yourself into the number 1 overall seed in the AFC again.
Right.
You're not. It's just, especially not with Derrick Henry not being on top of his game like he usually is.
Yeah, and here's what I'll say. There were a lot of positive things going on for the Titans. Obviously, there's a ton of negative there, but there was a lot of positive if you look for it. Traylon Burks had about 5 yards of separation per target on average. That's kind of nuts.
I'm pretty sure he led the.
I thought he looked really good.
I'm pretty sure he was second place in the NFL.
No, highest in the league. Even above people like Deebo Samuel, who I think was second. So yeah, absolutely nuts for Traylon Burks. A great first game for him. So, knocks out a lot of the doubts that Titan fans had, especially after his mediocre preseason. Kyle Phillips had some ups and downs, but the ups were really nice to see. Other than the muff punt, Kyle Phillips and Ryan Tannehill had a pretty great connection. Ryan Tannehill, that's another thing, did not look like Ryan Tannehill against the Bengals. He looked like Ryan Tannehill from the year before. He was much more accurate, and he was making better decisions. And Derrick Henry, Dontrell Hilliard looks to be like a really good combination in the backfield. Derrick Henry a little bit, didn't look quite as good as he did last year. A little slower. Not really, didn't really have that same pop. But again, it's his first game back from a pretty bad injury. And Dontrell Hilliard obviously showed out. Looked great as the receiving back. So there's a lot of positives you look for the Titans. There are things to build on that I think a lot of individual performances, like Amani Hooker had that beautiful pick, read Danny Dimes perfectly. So yeah, there was a lot of good there from the players. Obviously a lot of the issues came from play calling. So
yeah,
it's
definitely.
good if you look for it for this Titans team.
Yeah, I'm excited to see Dontrell Hilliard's role with this team. I thought he was pretty exciting to watch yesterday. And the saying goes, it's week one. You move on, new week. But it's going to be a little tough for Tennessee because they may have the eventual Super Bowl champs, or they're going to have to go to Buffalo, actually. They got the Bills next, followed by the Raiders in Nashville, and then the Colts in Indy. So this is a tough upcoming 3 games for the Titans. I mean, is 0-4 going to, or is 0-3, 0-4, yeah, going to happen?
If Buffalo's defense plays like they did back on Thursday Night Football, the NFL season opener, that offense is going to have a really tough time, a really tough time. And then if that defense, I think the defense will get their sacks. Obviously, Buffalo's offense had some miscues. They had 4 turnovers themselves. So I think the defense will try and keep that team in the game as much as possible against Buffalo. But that offense going up against that really stout Buffalo defense is going to be a big question mark. And then obviously the Raiders, that Devontae Adams, Derek Carr connection was as clear as day in their first NFL game together. So that's going to be a really tough matchup. But I think the Raiders are a winnable game, especially since it's in Nashville. But again, you can't make the mistakes you made against the Giants. You have to clean up by then. It's going to be really tough when you got Buffalo in between.
Yeah, for sure. And I think when it comes to that Bills game, it's definitely going to be a tough game for the Titans to win. But and if it was any other team, I'd probably say there's no way they're going to win the game. But knowing that the way that the Titans have been in the past couple of years, I still give them a chance to win just because we saw it last year when they came out in week 1 and they got blown out and then they turned it around after that. We saw them beat the Bills last year when everybody thought that there was no way they were going to beat the Bills last year either. I know it's on the road, so it's going to be tough, but it's also one of the things I think we've seen in the past that the Titans play up or down to the level of their competition. So I think that playing a better team, they will end up playing better. I don't know if it's going to be enough for them to beat the Bills, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jackson Williams, the one who tell you that first, rock solid alum Jack. He knows how the Titans play. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure I was on the phone with him the other day, and he said that he deep down thought Tennessee was going to lose this game. So it's just he has an innate ability to do that. But Shumpert, before we take our second break, I want to hear, what do you think the Titans' record is going to be after week 4? After these 3 games, obviously they're 0-1. What do you see happen?
I'll go 1-3. I mean, I don't think you can rule Titans out next week in Buffalo, but I have a hard time seeing them win that one. And Raiders, Colts, I think those are 2 games. Yeah, I see the Titans. I think both those games will be competitive. We'll say the Titans win 1, lose 1.
Yeah, I think if they sweep the Colts, it'll be really, really solid because Colts didn't look too well. But hey, we're going to talk some more NFL on the other side of the break, as well as some other UT sports and WNBA. So keep it right here on Rock Solid Sports on 90.3.
WUTK thanks Cool Beans, 1817 Lake Avenue, 1 block south of the Strip, for sponsoring and hosting the Monday night Rock Solid Sports broadcast at 7 p.m. Cool Beans is the pregame and postgame location for UT football, and Knoxville's home for the NFL Sunday Ticket, Titans football on the big screen, and more. Rock Solid Sports kicks off Monday Night Football with the show's live broadcast from 7 to 8 Monday nights at Cool Beans. Cool Beans is 21 and over after 9 p.m. with a full and late night menu. CoolBeansBar.com or their Facebook page.
Volunteer Radio thanks the UT Athletic Department and the men's basketball program for their support. Coach Barnes' 8th season on the hardwood includes home games against Kentucky, Vandy, and more at Thompson Bowling Arena. General public ticket info for UT basketball is at allvols.com. Student ticket info and login is at bigorangetics.utk.edu. That's TIX. Volunteer Radio says Go Vols basketball.
The Rock thanks the Knoxville Ice Bears Southern Professional Hockey League team for their support. Their 2022-2023 home ice season from October through April includes games with SPHL rivals Fayetteville, Huntsville, Roanoke, and more at the Civic Coliseum downtown. Single game and season tickets are at KnoxvilleIceBears.com or 865-525-PUCK. Rock Solid Sports features Ice Bears Wednesdays with news and updates. Volunteer Radio says Go Ice Bears.
Support for WUTK comes from Fieldhouse Social, the modern sports bar next to campus at University Commons. Fieldhouse Social serves American craft fare such as burgers, wings, and more with high tops around the bar, a separate dining area, and a center lounge with leather chairs and couches in front of their 23-foot LED TV wall for Tennessee and pro sports. Fieldhouse Social is an outdoor patio with trivia twice a week and sponsors Wednesday's Rock Solid Sports. FieldhouseSocial.com.
Volunteer Radio thanks our on-campus media partner, UTDailyBeacon.com, for their support. The Daily Beacon has served the University of Tennessee Knoxville as the official student editorially independent newspaper since 1906, featuring up-to-date campus and city news, sports, and info on UT and Knoxville events. And the sign-up for the Beacon newsletter is on the website. The Wednesday Daily Beacon is available at over 50 locations on campus, fall and spring semesters, and stories are published daily at utdailybeacon.com. The Daily Beacon sponsors WUTK's UT News and Issues show Rocky Top Roundup, Thursday nights at 7 on Volunteer Radio.
90.3 The Rock thanks the UT Athletic Department for their support. Season tickets for the 2022 UT Volunteers football season are on sale now. The next phase of Neyland Stadium renovations will be ready for the new season with home games against Florida, Alabama, Kentucky, and more. Info at allvols.com. A link is at WUTKradio.com. 90.3 The Rock wishes Coach Heupel and the football Vols good luck this season on the gridiron.
The Rock thanks the Hill Bar and Grill for their support. The Hill on Forest Avenue is open 7 days a week at 11 a.m. until late night for dining indoors or on the expanded patio. The Hill has a variety of appetizers and a full menu of wings, burgers, tacos, and more. The Hill is our Thursday Munchie Madness sponsor and home of Friday's Rock Solid Sports. On Instagram at The Hill Knox. Menu at thehillknox.com.
90.3 The Rock proudly brings Knoxville the best in new and classic, independent, and underground music.
But if he does need surgery, he will unfortunately end his season as reigning Defensive Player of the Year, TJ Watt. So that would suck. But Steelers got the week one, though.
Didn't JJ have that injury at one time, too?
I know he had a bad shoulder injury.
JJ Watt has had many injuries.
Yeah, back, shoulder, you name it. I think he had knee
I do
injury,
remember JJ Watt tearing his pec. I do
Okay.
remember that.
Okay, so it was a thing.
But hey, Steelers got the week one dub in a wild overtime
And
win.
I still think that if he wasn't going to be out for 6 weeks, I still probably would have taken TJ Watt as Defensive Player of the Year this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long season, 18 weeks. We'd see how it shakes out. But so I want to go roundtable here. I want to get everyone's thoughts. What is your biggest overreaction from week one, Joseph? You want to start us off?
Yeah, the Vikings are a contender.
Super Bowl contender? That's That's what you got to go.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they are. Kirk Cousins looked really good. I've heard a lot of people say that Kirk Cousins is a dark horse MVP candidate. And if he plays like he did in week 1 yesterday, all year long, I think he could be.
Let's be honest. I think the real reason the Vikings
is
are
because
contenders
Justin Jefferson.
because he's the new Cooper Kupp.
And you still have Adam Thielen as your wide receiver 2. Really solid wide receiver 2. You have Dalvin Cook as your running back. Oh, again, a really good running back.
And Zadarius Smith and Danielle Hunter.
Yeah,
great pass.
I was about to
rush
say, that Vikings defense really solid against Aaron Rodgers and Green Bay, just holding them to a single touchdown in that game. I think the Vikings, they could put together a really good season. You know, the new coaching staff, O'Connell there, now the head coach. I think it could revamp Cousins in that offense, and then the defense is going to show up. I think Super Bowl contender week 1. That's my overreaction.
Okay. Riley? Go ahead, Bryson.
My overreaction is that the NFC West is not good.
Ooh.
Okay.
They've been good for the past 5 or 6 years. They've had at least 2 or 3 teams in the playoffs every year, it feels like, between Seattle and the Rams and the Cardinals and San Francisco. All of those teams have been pretty solid over the last 6-7 years. I feel like a couple of those teams have made Super Bowl runs, or even Seattle won the Super Bowl. I know about 9 years ago now, so it's been a minute.
Yeah.
But 3 out of the 4 teams have already lost in week 1, and I expect the Seahawks to also lose tonight. And I don't know, San Francisco, I don't think they looked great. We don't know what we're going to see out of Trey Lance. I don't know if Trey Lance is going to be that guy. The Cardinals just looked kind of inept at times. I know they ended up scoring 21 points, but I feel like they had one of those touchdowns was in garbage time. And so I don't know what's going on with them. And then the Rams did not look good in that opening night game. I know they were playing the Bills, which is a really good team. I still think the Rams will be the best team out of those 4, but I don't know if they don't look as good as they did last year. Maybe it's because Matthew Stafford isn't 100%, but I don't know. It's looking like the NFC West, which has been regarded as one of the better divisions, might be kind of in a changing of the guard a little bit, and we're kind of seeing maybe some other divisions kind of take that title.
I love that take, Bryson. I'm not a big Cardinals guy, definitely not a big Seahawks guy, and far from a Trey Lance guy. And I was going to go last on this roundtable, but good host can't waste a good segue. So Trey Lance, yeah, my overreaction, which I don't even think is an overreaction, is just something I desperately want to see. But I'm talking 2 weeks. Jimmy Garoppolo is back as the starter for the Niners, and he's full send and starter rest of the season. Trey Lance is not good. He showed it against the Bears.
I hope so, because I have Debo on my big money fantasy league, and Debo does a lot better with Jimmy G as his QB.
I hated the decision when they took him 3rd overall. I've tried to buy in this offseason. I'm like, okay, maybe it'll work. I trust Kyle Shanahan. I trust John Lynch, but no, it's not going to work. Jimmy G is the man. He's gotten you to 2 NFC championship games, 1-1. I mean, just start him. Yeah. You have the talent elsewhere. Okay,
you really do.
It's so stupid. Okay,
it is. Let's keep in mind this was his first ever NFL game. So
no, it's not. He started one last year.
Okay, well, it's the first one of his first season as the starter, though.
Okay, listen,
I feel like he started one last year, but you know what? He's the guy this year.
I think everyone was really thinking that it would be a Patrick Mahomes transformation, and it's just not. Yeah, it's not going to be.
Patrick Mahomes is the only person that has ever had a Patrick Mahomes transformation.
I mean, it's just, well, that's what I'm saying. There are several teams going to try and replicate that. Trey Lance is the version of trying to replicate that. 1 year sitting on the bench, come over and take over for the semi-old starter, coming off injuries.
Right. Okay.
I mean,
I mean, you have fair, a mid guy.
A very
and Alex Smith's better than Garoppolo, but just a kind of a guy.
And I don't think I'm with Jack. I don't think it's going to work. So,
I hope they just pull the trigger, because they could just sit on their decision all season and then not make the playoffs when they have all the time in the world. But I digress.
They could easily win that division.
Yeah, and you can't make the excuse that it was a slot fest, all this, because Justin Fields and the god-awful Bears won.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, Riley, what's your overreaction, buddy?
All right, so my overreaction for NFL Week 1, I'm going to go with the Lions could meet the seventh wild card, or the third wild card spot. In the NFC.
Okay.
I know. I think they looked really good against the Eagles, who a lot of people consider that one of the best rosters in the NFL right now.
For sure.
And the Lions really, really tried to make a comeback on those Eagles and nearly accomplished it. So I think you could look at the Lions as somebody who could be a dark horse contender to sneak into playoffs there, because their schedule's, obviously pretty easy, being last in their division. And I think they've got a really golden opportunity to potentially make a push, probably be the second, in my opinion, I think they could end up being the second team in the NFC North.
Jeez.
How about DeAndre Swift, though?
Oh,
yeah, they're rushing attack.
175 total yards, rushing and receiving, and a touchdown.
If they had any other quarterback other than Jared Goff, I would say they could compete for that division. But I don't think Jared Goff is going to give them a chance to win the division.
For the division?
I think. Well, you got think who's in that division. Think who's in the division. You're competing with the Eagles.
Okay, we're getting a little too extreme here.
You can check more on cover.
Riley started getting extreme when he said second in the division. No way, Detroit Lions.
I'm saying no.
Ever going to finish higher than Rodgers?
They can't now.
They're scrappy, but come on, let's get real. Ryan, you want to give a quick overreaction here?
Yes, I'm actually going to weigh in there just on something Joseph said. If they had any other quarterback than Jared Goff, I feel like Jared Goff gets so much hate. He's not that great, but Ryan Tannehill, Derek Carr, those guys aren't. Derek Carr is pretty good.
Yeah,
but,
I was going to say Derek Carr.
Matt Ryan, so many of these middle of the pack quarterbacks are not changing things in Detroit. But that's beside the point. I'll get on to my overreaction. And look, I didn't watch a ton of games yesterday, so I was traveling back from Pittsburgh. So I'm going to go with a take that I've been squatting on for a while, and Jack has heard it. And that is that Davis Mills is the best quarterback in the AFC South.
I agree with you.
And that is that Davis Mills is the best quarterback in the 2021 draft class.
No. Hold up. I 100% agree with you.
You were kidding.
I 100% agree with you that he's the best quarterback in the South. He's produced better than Tannehill. He produced better than Tannehill last year. He's definitely better than Trevor Lawrence was last year. And he, so far, is better or as good as Matt Ryan. They tied. And guess who didn't throw an interception? Davis Mills. Matt Ryan did. So I agree with you, Ryan.
Oh man.
I can't put him over Trevor Lawrence still, though, regardless.
Exactly. Thank you,
just because of the potential.
Thank you.
The potential.
Yes.
Okay, well, we're not talking
about that.
Yeah,
we're talking about right now. Right now, he's the best quarterback right now.
Don't just bend your knee to Jack and his Clemson Jaguars love.
I will never bend my knee to a Jaguars fan.
I'm a Trevor Lawrence fan, okay?
Yeah. Come on now.
TL16 till I die.
Ryan Shumpert with the best take on the show tonight.
Granddaddy Longneck is not the best quarterback in the South.
Yes, he is.
And I am never been more convinced of anything that the Titans will lose a game to the Texans this year. We've played them so close.
Don't we every year though?
No, that's the thing. We don't.
We did last year.
We played them so close. Yeah, that's true. Well, that game was awful.
Yeah,
it was. Out of my memory, but it just feels like every game we play against the Texans, whether they're bad or solid, good, every game is close.
Yeah,
we're gonna lose. We're gonna lose one this year, and we really can't afford it either. After dropping one we shouldn't have yesterday.
The Texans are the AFC Lions. They're just scrappy. I don't like their head coach.
Scrappy.
I'd much rather have Dan Campbell, but they are scrappy. Bryson, let's change gears a little bit. Let's get away from these awful takes here. I don't know what's going on anymore. But what's going on in the WNBA?
Yeah, so WNBA Finals Game 1 was yesterday along with the NFL, and it was actually a really exciting game. The Las Vegas Aces went up 1-0 against the Connecticut Sun, led by performances that were just incredible from Asia Wilson and Chelsea Gray, honestly, this entire playoffs has been pretty much proved to be the most clutch basketball player in the WNBA for sure. I don't think there's really a question. And it's every time they need a big shot, Chelsea Gray is there. Asia Wilson won MVP and Defensive Player of the Year. It looks like she will also have a chance to win a ring and a Finals MVP. And I don't know. I'm still going with the Aces. Obviously, that's been my favorite team for the whole season. I've been kind of rocking with them. So I think they're just a better team overall. With Asia, I think Asia Wilson and Chelsea Gray are the two best players in the series. And a lot of times when you have a series, especially if it's only 5 games, if one team has the 2 best players, they're going to win. Obviously, Connecticut has a good team. They have DeWanna Bonner. They have Jonquel Jones. They have Courtney Williams, all great players. And Alyssa Thomas was their leading scorer in game 1-2, and she's a great player as well. I just don't know if they have enough because, honestly, the Aces really did not play their best game, and they still won by 3. Kelsey Plum was 1 for 9 and only had 6 points. she's basically the third option, and she had a horrible game. So I think if she just has an okay game going forward, they'll definitely be the champions.
Absolutely. And game 2 is going to be tomorrow night at 9 p.m. And let's end the show with a little more UT sports talk. Joseph, what's going on, my friend?
Yeah, so the soccer team going on 4 straight shutouts after a 6-0 win over Queens last night. They're heading to their first SEC match against Florida this Friday. They're going to be at Florida, pretty tough opponent in the soccer version of the Swamp. Also, for the volleyball team, they're coming off a solid weekend on the Rocky Top Classic. They play tomorrow against a ranked Western Kentucky team at 6 p.m. at Thompson-Boling Arena. So make sure everybody goes, checks out, and supports the Lady Vols.
Absolutely, Joseph. And that's going to do it for this Monday edition of Rock Solid Sports. Big thanks to our sponsor, Cool Beans. Thanks to Joseph, Bryson, our guest, Ryan, Riley at Cool Beans, everybody here at Rock Solid. Hope you have a great rest of your Monday night. We'll see you Wednesday.
Rockin' ears for 40